It's just a tranquil, easy place to live. I just love the ambience of it.
We came through that gate and figured this is home.
The people are wonderful.
It's residential and it's not commercial.
Discover a place where lush forests lie laced with tranquil lagoons and emerald marshes melt into sparkling waters. Discover Dataw Island. Dataw Island offers a chance to enjoy a rich and rewarding lifestyle, combining all the amenities of a premier resort with the privacy of an exclusive retreat. For thousands of years, this South Carolina has been home to many, from prehistoric Indians and the Spanish to the William Sams family, who turned Dataw's 870 acres into an indigo and cotton-producing plantation. Today, the remains of this fascinating past are carefully preserved. After the Civil War, Dataw Island lay untouched for more than a century. Then, in 1983, Alcoa Properties purchased the island and plans for a special community began.
The day we drove in here, it was probably one of the prettiest places we'd ever seen. The infrastructure is extraordinary.
Well, Alcoa at Dataw pays very careful attention to detail.
The fact that Alcoa was involved really made us feel comfortable and very assured that there would be no problem.
An unparalleled concern for quality is evident the moment you enter the island's 24-hour security gate. Beautifully maintained landscaping incorporates ancient oaks and fragrant pine. Egrets tiptoe at water's edge, and manicured fairways stretch invitingly in the distance. Nestled in this beauty are the tranquil neighborhoods of Dataw. Here, an architectural review board assures a harmonious blend of nature and development. Home sites overlook deep water, wide expanses of marsh, and golf courses edged by forest.
I just had a very good feeling about being here. Felt an energy here that we'd felt in Hawaii, felt in New Zealand.
Not being able to be here while our house was being built, we wanted to trust somebody, and we felt it was best to trust Alcoa.
Alcoa doesn't cut corners.
We bought our property the first day we were here.
This commitment to excellence results in a private community of the highest standards, one that offers a respite from a hectic world, yet enjoys a vitality all its own. Indeed, the amenities on Dataw Island are world-class. The Cotton Dyke, planned by master designer Tom Fazio, is one of 2 championship golf courses on the island. This spectacular course artfully contours the land, offering dramatic views of the marsh and deep water. The Morgan River Golf Course, designed by renowned course architect Arthur Hills, offers an exciting contrast to Cotton Dyke. Elevated greens and pot bunkers create a signature for designer Hills on this challenging and picturesque course. For amateurs and professionals alike, Dataw's courses promise a challenging test.
Hills tends to be a little narrower, a little tighter courses, a little more accurate. Fazio is a little bit more open. But between those 2 courses, you've got all the golf you'd ever want.
The people in the pro shop are very, very cooperative. It's just a neat place. It's difficult going on vacation, by the way. When you live in paradise, it's where do you go?
The golf course here is marvelous. It's a little distracting sometimes because we'll look off into the marsh, and in the creeks there'll be the porpoise out. We really enjoy golfing here at Dataw.
For the boater, Alcoa, South Carolina has created a state-of-the-art marina, offering both wet and dry storage. Easy intracoastal and ocean access make Dataw's marina the perfect location for the cruising yachtsman. Outstanding inshore and offshore fishing is another reason to call Dataw your home port. And for the sailor, there are no bridges between you and the blue Atlantic.
The perimeter dock is a breakwater dock we call a wave attenuator, and what it's designed to do is to break all surface wake, and it does that very nicely. It really does.
The thing I like about it, it's a freshwater boat, and here when they take it out, they rinse it off, flush out the motor with fresh water, and so every time you go in or out of the water, it's brought back to its original condition.
The marina we have here is far and away the nicest marina I have seen.
From golf to tennis, fishing and crabbing, the island offers something for everyone. Garden in the cannery or explore along scenic bike paths. With Dataw's temperatures averaging 65 degrees, the outdoors is comfortably enjoyed year-round. For more sophisticated pleasures, residents often gather at the clubhouse. Here, an elegant yet casual atmosphere provides the perfect setting for every social event, including quiet evenings with friends. Only 6 miles away lies the antebellum town of Beaufort. Rich in history, this gracious community welcomes Dataw's residents, sharing its churches, hospitals, and exciting cultural events.
One of the things that was certainly attractive here is that you have the quiet, the serenity, the very closeness to nature, but in a very short proximity you have Beaufort and the things that that has to offer.
The proximity of a place like Savannah and also Charleston, within an hour and a half, we can be in 2 of the most beautiful cities in America where there's incredible shopping, there's wonderful history and cultural activities that's more related to the lifestyle you used to live.
We can drive out to the ocean, which is only about 10 miles away from here, and be on the beautiful beach at Hunting Island.
It's a very, very nice, low-key place to be.
I would defy anybody to find a place that's as near perfect as Dataw. It's just about as near perfect as you can get, I think.
This spectacular sea island offers the opportunity to experience a lifestyle both earned and well-deserved. Discover what it means to enjoy life's richest pleasures. Discover Dataw Island.
Earlier today, there was a recognition of the originals from Dataw. There is one original that we want to fully recognize. These are my colleagues, Barb Fisher and Lynn Faulkner. Yeah, okay, so there's one original that we want to recognize that has not yet received a pin, and that's Lori Murdoch. And Lori has been here for 40 years. So she knows all the ins and outs of that time. We can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyhow, I'm Bill Risk. I moderate the second panel. As you can see, it's a few more people than the first panel. We have a mix of some prior Alcoa reps and some golf pros and residents that have been here for quite a long time. And so we wanted to get some different perspectives and talk about different questions that I'll be posing. And then we'll answer if you have some written down. And Maryland and Diane will collect those and pass them to me during this. But in terms of opening remarks, we're going to dive into the first 2 decades, the 80s and the 90s, and then the last panel today will be the 2010s that Diane will be moderating. And as I was putting together my notes, thanks. As I was putting together my notes and reflecting on these 4 decades, you know, I'm a newbie to say the least, but I do remember 1980. You may too. That was before there was Amazon. There was no online shopping then. There were no cell phones yet. You can believe it. And near and dear to my heart, there were no Mac computers. But 40 years there's another connection of 40 years at the Sam's that, as I was putting these together, kind of surprised me. You realize that Dr. B.B. Sams that built the Treasure Archive House, the ones that we have over here, he finished that in 1820. In 1860, it was 61. It was abandoned when the Civil War started. So that home was finished, lived there for 40 years by his family, and then gone forever. During our formative years in this 80s and 90s, the clubhouse was opened in 1985. Not this room, the clubhouse room. This room you'll hear more about later. This was opened in 2002. Contact course, of course, opened right away. The Morgan River course was rolled out in phases. The first 9 holes came out in 89, opened in 89, and the following 9 holes opened in 1993. And one of the things I have to mention about this time period, I'd be remiss if I didn't. There was this thing called the Dataw Circus of Curiosity that started in 1999. That wasn't called that, I knew that. And a few other things from 1984, just to get your mindset as we get to start talking about that. Sally Field won the Oscar for the Best Actress in Places in the Heart. The #1 song on the Billboard's Top 100 was When Doves Cry by Prince. Ronald Reagan had just been elected president. The South Carolina governor was Richard Riley, and Henry C. Chambers was the mayor. What I'm going to do now is pause for a second and have all the panel members just tell you their names and give a sentence or two about their connection to Dataw, and any timing of that is appropriate. So, Ms. Jane, go for it.
Hello, everyone. It's wonderful seeing familiar, friendly faces. My husband, Bob, and I am a widow now 8 years, first came to Dataw in November of '91. I received an invitation, which was a marketing employee of theirs. I don't know if some of the rest of them may have received a similar invitation. And Bob did business with the Navy up in Charleston, and he said, what the heck? Our kids were graduated from college. We lived in Connecticut at the time along the shore in Guilford, and we came down for a weekend. We stayed in a bluff unit, and of course, Bob golfed. Bill Hall was the golf pro then, and he absolutely loved it. He had friends from our club in Connecticut who lived over on Kalawasi Island, but we knew nobody on Dataw. And sure enough, when we went to have dinner, our evening dinner, the gentlemen had to wear jackets. I mean, it was a very formal affair. We were invited by several people to sit at their table. And thus we almost made instantaneous friends. We had a wonderful experience. We went on to Dataw Island and then up to Charleston, and we were at Charleston Place Hotel. Bob came back from business, and I was talking with Nancy Butler about buying a lot. So he knew his food was cooked. We never regretted for a moment, and I'm so happy to think that my husband enjoyed the later years of his life here in this island of friends. I should say on this island of friends. And pass it on to this guy.
I'm Betty Gettle, and the one thing I regretted when we signed in, I wrote down Betty. I should have written BJ. And the only people that do call me BJ are the people in the Bible class. Anyway, we were visiting in Savannah, and my husband was really crazy about skinaways, and I wasn't crazy about it. They said, you ought to see Dataw. Well, we didn't have time to see Dataw because we were flying back to California. The next trip, we came east, we got information, and we came to see Dataw. And that driveway entrance over the causeway told us. We went back to California. We bought a lot. We came. And we had Jim made, got all our plans, and we had a 4-year plan when we were coming. And lo and behold, what happened? I got a phone call one afternoon, about 3 o'clock, and it was Jim May. And I said, oh, hi. And he said, I have good news, Mrs. Gettle. We can start your house 6 months sooner. I said, wonderful. Go ahead. I'm sorry, it was about 6 o'clock because my husband, Jim Gettle, came in the back door and said, who was that? I said, well, it was Jim May. He's going to start our house 6 months sooner. He said, I haven't even told my partners yet I'm leaving. And I said, well, Jim Gettle, I'm going to South Carolina.
Out here and I see so many faces and I think about the number of people that were here when we first arrived. And there were very few of us here at the time. I think maybe when we moved here in 91, 92, there might have been a couple hundred houses with that many. A lot of the roads were still dirt roads. You couldn't even drive the circle at that time. That was finished at a later time. Yeah, but there were still many dirt roads. I mean, the big Dataw wasn't even, it was just a big open field at that time. I think there were still a lot of pecan trees up there. You could get up there and hunt pecans. But it's been interesting to be here and see how everything has changed over the years. It's been a great place for us to be. We loved it. We still enjoy being here and seeing the few people that we know. And now is you meet people who you can't remember your names. That triggers us again. Bob started to think about return, and he was in his mid-50s, I guess. Dataw at that time was doing a lot of advertising in the New York Times, sailing magazines, and golf magazines. So he said, we have to go check this place out. So I said, okay. So we came down one weekend in November. I think it was the Thanksgiving weekend. And of course, you had to go and see the real estate people. We met Louis Levan. And then the next thing we knew, we looked around and he said, I'm going to buy a lot. And I said, you're crazy. I said, you don't do things this quickly. It always takes us forever to make up our mind. Well, we bought this lot in Westbrook Road. Westbrook Road was just a dirt road at that time. We go home and I said, pull them up and cancel this deal. It's not what we want. He said, well, I want it. So anyway, here we are. We talked to came down another time. We decided it was right to build the house. We built the house. We got home and there was a phone call, and Bob worked for Reynolds Metals. We had a message on the answering machine. That's what we used back then, answering machine. And was saying, they're offering you a golden parachute. All his numbers were right. Well, it took him about 30 seconds to say, I'm gonna take it. So then we had to call Jim May up and say, hey, Jim, can you move that house up a little bit? I said, so that was our journey here. When we first came here, coming down Cedar Island Parkway, 21, it was a trip and a half. People still had goats and chickens and stuff. You know, it was not even a caution light coming into Palomar Road. And when you go down to the big intersection at Sam's Point Road, only one lot had something built, only one corner had something building on it, and that's where the Graco is. All the other lots were still heavily treed. And I don't even know if there was a traffic light at that intersection, I can't tell you. But it's been wonderful to be here and see all the changes and all the positive things that have occurred. So enjoy your time here.
All right, this is on. Richard Whiteman. I came here in '84, before the bridge was built, and have been working here ever since. Probably none of you have seen me working here. I've been working on the ruins, and so it's just a few weeks, a year maybe, some years not at all, sometimes for a couple of months. The last time I was here working was last year this time. And I was here for about a month, I guess. And I just turned 70, and I guess they're not going to let me leave. So anyway, it's been quite an honor working on the ruins and being a part of Dataw that way. Thank you.
I'm Ann Gilbert. George and I came down to see Dataw in '86. And we had owned property down at Sea Island, and this friend of ours said, George, you better take a look at Dataw. He said, this is the way Sea Island used to be years and years ago. So we came down, and I think that same weekend, we bought our property and got started on a house and have never regretted it. So our kids absolutely love it. I love it. I wouldn't go anywhere else. It has been absolutely wonderful. Wonderful people, wonderful place. Enjoy.
Good afternoon. I'm Charles Amar. I'm a Sam's family descendant, one of many in the area now. I'm a native Beaufortonian and have watched from my youth Dataw progress to this very beautiful and special place. As a child, I had an adopted grandmother, a Sam's relative who lived in Atlanta. And through the friendship of the Rowland family, Mary Sams would pick me up on afternoons or weekends, and we would make our way to Dataw and picnic out in the pecan field or walk the river shore. So to this day, I have a handmade oar I found in the marshes. And I think probably a tabby brick from the home site on the Coosaw River. But the memories of this enchanted place with maybe Native Americans in the woods or wild boars coming after us will always be remembered. And to this day, I enjoy being a club member and getting to know a lot of residents that are here over the years, and new friends and old friends. And I think what the Historic Foundation has done to preserve not just some of my family's history, but the history of Dataw is remarkable. And so you should pat yourselves on your back that y'all have done an amazing job on preserving what is here. Thank you.
My name is Jim May. A couple of people mentioned it already. Obviously, I was working with Alcoa since 1984, predominantly in the house construction and design. So there's a lot of familiar faces in here. And it's an extreme honor to be here. You guys would let me come back. But we worked with Alcoa for about 12 or 13 years and then off to build our own. So we stayed on Dataw to do that until recently. So I'm still involved in the house design and so forth, but I don't get to see people as often as I like, and I'll come out here as often. So it's been great to come out here and see all the faces, all the great people. And when Betty mentioned that she said, like, the call came in at 6 o'clock, it made me think, what we used to do is we worked late hours, and it was Woody and myself, while we were working on the real estate side, we worked as long as we could, making phone calls, and we worked the country on the timelines. So when people would look to say, well, I got to make these calls, and I'd look and see where they live, and I could wait until later in the day and make the calls on the West Coast. So Betty, fortunately, we got you at 6 o'clock. I've only been working about 9 o'clock. But anyway, you'll have some great questions. It'd be fun to answer some of those. Look forward to today.
I'm Ann Brown, and I was hired in 1984, and initially to help the Vice President of Operations with the initial buying and dinnerware and serviceware and uniforms and all that kind of thing that you have when you're starting a club like this. Then I transitioned into HR and then I took on membership. And later in the late years, I was the events manager and then back to membership and retired 2 years ago. I'm also a Beaufortonian and proud of it. And I see a lot of old faces and a lot of new faces. So, but I'm enjoying retirement.
My name is Woody Oakley. I'm the first sales rep that Bill Cochran hired for Dataw Island. And our initial crew consisted of 4 sales reps. And I had recently seen Nancy Butler do a presentation over at the place where she worked at the time, and I was impressed and invited her to come, and Bill hired her as well. And we had 2 others, Joyce Gates, and we can't remember the other one. Back there, you remember? Tom? He was in it.
Min Richardson.
He wasn't here.
We're 4 of us, so to start.
And we had a good long ride and enjoyed all of it. And for those of you who heard Larry's speech a while ago, I told an abbreviated version of that about 475 times. Larry came and spoke to us early on, and before we opened it, it was all about the history, and so we tried to all memorize what he had said, so when people came, we could tell them all about this island and it goes way back to when and so forth. So I enjoyed listening to that again. Okay. Let's see next.
I guess the 40 years of showing on this, we can't remember, so. Nothing, y'all.
can relate to. I'm Trudy Arthur, and many of you know me. I came here on April 16th, 1984. I started in the marketing department. There was no sales department. There was nothing. People someone said about the dirt roads, there were all dirt roads when I came. There was no clubhouse when I started. They were mounding the dirt for the clubhouse. I remember they poured the concrete, and a bunch of us came out with these big black rubber boots so we could walk around in the mud and the dirt. And I kept thinking, this is going to be so small. That was the real clubhouse. One of the reasons that I am here is Lori Murdoch. Lori and I were great friends in our younger days when we worked together at a bank downtown Beaufort. How come we came in? I'm a Beaufortonian. I was born and raised here. Like Charles, I came to Dataw. I was a teenager. Dr. rolling on the island, and there was a caretaker's shack down at PD Point. And we'd come out here and party straight up. The bridge was so bad, the boys knew to get the girls here, and they would have somebody wait on the other side of the bridge. We'd get out of our car, and they would drive the car over, and they'd walk us to the car. We probably did a little underage drinking over there. I played our music really loud, so I had very fond memories of Dr. Williams. It was a beautiful island, just like in the woods. I didn't see the ruins there or anything. The road initially went right through where the houses are, the sales office, went right along the water there, and then later got new, they were back here. Anyway, Lori and I went to the bank, and she told me one day she was going to work out. And I was like, children, I can't do that. That's still on Dataw. Anyway, she went to work, and she just kept on and on. You needed to go, and I'm so glad I did. I came and started in the marketing department, which consisted of Arthur Levin. It really got tricky when I became Trudy Arthur. He and I were in the marketing department, basically. And it's just absolutely been a grapevine. Alcohol was good to us. I think they did an amazing job setting up the foundation for Dataw. And somebody said earlier, kudos to every one of y'all that have kept this place true to Dataw. I see it, I appreciate it. I'm still here, most of y'all know that. I'm still here selling real estate. And I believe in it. So I will be here, I guess, till I drop. Who knows? But I love where I work, and all of y'all. You just feel lucky. You get to live in a playground with all these playmates. I encourage you each to look around and think about how lucky you are to be here. Thank you.
My name is David Bakura. I was hired in March of '83 out of Pittsburgh, and I was hired to be the director of vice president, I don't remember which, actually, of design and development. So every consultant that I hired, I ended up hiring them, and they were working under my direction, which involved quite a few at the time. If you can imagine 878 acres is what I remember having. And, getting the phase one done and having it all come together at the same time so that we could open in spring of '85 and having a place for people to stay and all that construction coming together is quite a planning process. So that's what I was involved with. And now just leave it there. It's testimony to the chord that it struck for how many of you here. I hope you get your questions answered.
Hi, I'm Lori Murdoch. I'm your Assistant General Manager and Controller still. I came in September of '83, so I've been here quite a while, seen a lot of changes. I would say that I have been able to work with a lot of great people on the stage and those who are here. Also been able to meet and be a part of a lot of your lives. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I love Dataw, but liking it, I was retiring. So, yep. But, Jen, I would work for time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bill Hall. I was the first hire as the head professional here. Hired out of Pittsburgh, where I was a young assistant at Oakmont in Pittsburgh. And the president of Alcoa Properties was a member of Oakmont, so I was at the right place at the right time. I took advantage of an opportunity as a young single assistant to come down here and start a golf operation. What a wonderful dream that came true, really. And the thing that was really fun is I met my wife here, and she's a local, so and we're still married after 27 years. So it's a special place for us. And, you know, one of the things that really strikes home with me is how you folks and management have maintained the amenities out here in this, the infrastructure and the aesthetics. It's spectacular, and you're really to be applauded for that effort because it's impressive. And I've been to many places that are of similar age, and they did not follow through to the extent that you have out here. So I'm delighted to be here, and I hope I can answer any questions you might have for me. Thank you.
So I warned Dave ahead of time. I was going to ask him the first question and sort of kick things off. And Dave has an interesting background. You can correct me where I'm wrong, but he was trained as a landscape architect. And then got bored with that, so he got an MBA and found out he liked strategic planning. So you put 2 and 2 together and he gets hired to come down here. So my question first is, what were some of the key constraints, the factors that you had to consider in even laying out downtown? Like, for example, did you lay out Cotton Dyke and everything else was after that, or how did that all work?
Wow. We had, Tom Dazzio was a favorite of Frank Smith, who Bill was just referring to, he was the head of Alcoa Properties, Inc. And this operation here, the operating company was Alcoa, South Carolina. But Tom Dazzio had done courses for Alcoa elsewhere, and most recently, we were board at Jonathan's Landing. And the relationship was so good, it was just that he was come up here and do this courses up here. So we had both courses and was involved in the site planning along with Ed Pickney, associates out of Hilton Head, to do the first couple cuts of the master plan. And both courses, the approximate layout was laid in for both courses right from the get-go. After the first course was finished and we were moving jumping ahead a little bit, past right around the opening, Tom decided that he couldn't compete with having 8 marshfront holes for his second course, and didn't want to be, every time he's done 2 courses back to back in the same development, always gotten criticized for the second course, and he then wanted to extract himself out of this process. And so that kind of left us in a quandary. But before that came to fruition, we learned that the combination of water and fairway was yielding a return that was higher than just straight fairway and so what Tom and I actually sat in his office until 11:30 one night, relaying out the second course, putting in more water features so that we could increase the yield on the property. But after that is when he's decided he didn't want to stay with it. So I needed to find a golf course architect that could visualize. It's another interesting thing about golf course architects, maybe Bill has some insight into this, but a lot of them can't visualize their courses in advance. They really have to see them real time. I mean, Jack Nicklaus was known for ripping up his 18th hole on his new course 3 or 4 times before he came to the one he really liked. He needed to see first. And Tom Fazio would come up. He had his own shaping company, and he would come on every week and direct what would happen for the following week, dozer-wise. But we needed a guy who could visualize the course right from the get-go, and that's where our kids came in. He did the last department by training and used to putting things on paper. He became a golf course architect later in his career. He was an older man, and so we had confidence to hire him in a way that so that he could design the second course and then let it sit on the shelf until the phases were ready to construct. So that's an example of just one of the things that evolved over time, particularly as it relates to the golf course.
Bill, do you want to add something about the experience of opening up the first course and how that all went?
Actually, yes, that'd be great. We wanted to get someone in here that would be a celebrity and preferably a tour player. And we had a relationship, one of the board of directors members of Alcoa was Jack Diesel, who was the chairman of Tenneco back then. And he was Mark O'Meara's original sponsor on tour. So through that relationship, we brought Mark O'Meara in to help kick off the opening of the Cotton Golf Course, which was, and we had a lot of players, and we had a designated group that played with Mark, and it was very festive, and we had a tenant out on the driving range to have the ceremony afterwards, or prior to, I should say. So it was real festive and a lot of fun. One of the things that we did when we first opened here was we didn't have any members to speak of, so there was an offering created to a lot of locals through a lot of the block sales that they could get memberships, and Lori might be more familiar with the particulars to that, but it really did engage Dataw to the local community, because a lot of them realized that they take advantage of a nice opportunity to play a wonderful golf course. So we had a lot of local members back then. I think we still have some, but it was really popular back in that day.
Get to the right of the tree.
Yeah, well, we got Mark to hit to the right of the tree. Hit on number was now number 9. Yeah, so that was interesting. But he had a good time. He really enjoyed it. He did a good job with it too. And along those lines, we hired a tour player to represent Dataw back in the 80s. And that guy named Brett Upper, who I knew when I was in Pennsylvania. And Brett wore all the paraphernalia, the apparel with Dataw on it. And, really represented this community very well on tour. And except for one thing that happened, he was leaving. He was leaving the Hartford Open, and I had purposely, we had a contract that he would wear a visor with Dataw on the front. And lo and behold, on TV, and he doesn't have his visor on, so that was not good. But I remember Bill Condon asking me about it, so. I'll pass it.
Yeah, one other question for you, Bill. What's the story about helicopters involving here? I'm sorry. What's the story about helicopters involving here?
Well, I shared this with Dave Britton earlier, actually. We talked about some of the early days. And, the CBS broadcasters and the PGA Tour officials play an annual match in between the Masters and the Heritage. And we have a member out here that is friends with Frank Turkinian, who oversaw CBS Sports Golf in particular. So through that connection, we were able to secure them having their match at Dataw. So by getting in here with helicopters, that was the agreement. So, we had guys like Gary McCord and a long list of celebs that came in. And it was, it was all about trying to get exposure for this community, for this golf course, and it really was a good thing for us. We got a little blurb on national TV during the tournament as well, during the Heritage, about them coming up here and playing. So those were early days, and things that we were doing along those lines were, we were always trying to promote. When I first came here, I contacted the South Carolina executive director of golf, and he said, what's the name of that place? They had no idea. So we had to get people out here to experience it and realize what a great product we had. So that was a big part of my job early on, was to promote this golf course and this island. And I think you guys have really seen that. You've done a great job yourselves with doing that. So it's on the map. It's very much on the map.
Thank you.
Let me toss this one over to Trudy out there. Trudy, you want to fill us in a little bit on how the heck the roads were named around here?
Oh. Name, sorry. Dirt one was here. In the marketing department, we did a lot of research. Tell me what to do, how to do it, and how that works. They tie it into history. We all had that. That's before the internet. So I would go to the library and look up different things. We purchased a bunch of books about South Carolina. I know Dr. Rowland helped us a great deal with that. Just tied in the names to something specific to this area. And then, of course, as we grew out into South Carolina, like the PD River, or the PD Point, the Indians were Chicora Indians. It was all tied into a local history. And then there was a group that got together when you made this list, and they would just identify. That's what I recall.
I guess the question I have is, was this all internal to Alcoa doing the naming, or did you have any constraints given to you by the county or the state?
My recollection is they let us use any name that we wanted as long as it didn't duplicate, which we made sure it didn't duplicate anywhere. The one thing that we did was set up the master plan. And it had all the lot numbers. Well, my recollection is we thought we could go to the post office. Those lot numbers would be your address. And therefore, your lot number is your address.
So, a question to Dave or anybody else that was around back then, which is, we are the Dataw Historic Foundation, so I guess I have to ask, do you have any stories about protecting the history here, or how that was worked into the plan?
Well, from the name forward, it was attention to history. There was, this is part of the Low Country, so how can we hold to the Low Country and attract people? We have an expectation of a lot of people coming down from the north and have that tied together. So that includes the naming, that includes the streets, that includes figuring out how to make road signs out of tabby look-alike composition, which was a process in of itself. It included the architecture, the roof line, and the Low Country style, the style of the original clubhouse. It was all to an eye to belong and carry that belonging into marketing sales and for the people who were coming. So
I would just add, early years before anything really happened, Alcoa hired Larry LaBianca and a team. There was a local archaeologist, and they did digs all over the island. It was so much fun. They would come into our office with this little brown bag rolled up, and it had a letter, and they had a grid, and they were finding things. And they knew that it would be the northeast corner of the island where the point is, not Big Dataw Point, but the point. They knew that there was an Indian trading down there from what they were finding. I always thought it was funny, the story that was told. Here I thought I was doing marketing. Indians long ago were doing marketing because there was this tale of a story that there was an Indian that lived on Dataw that ate special herbs and grew to this enormous size. I think that's huge marketing because you know all those Indians were paddling over here to find those herbs. So that trading place, it just made Dataw have that history and the things that they found there. It was talking about that. And I think that started it, you know, where we knew the Indians were here, we backed it up that far. I think they were the Chicora Indians. But they started by nurturing this island. Alcoa did. I thought we were going to be big bad developers, but what I saw, I fell in love with. And they did take care of the island, and they did try to rescue artifacts that they could find here and preserve them. So I think that ties into the history.
A lot of that was thanks to Bill Cochran.
Oh yeah, Bill Cochran. I've always said Bill Cochran, I don't know any of you that knew him, he was a big man. And we used to go to Johnson's Landing to train, and we'd go to Johnson's Landing and then we go, oh my God, he is such a teddy bear. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like 6'10". He was a big guy. I thought. And then once you got to know him, he was that teddy bear. But it was his vision, and I say to this day, makes me want to cry. He is the closest I'll ever be to knowing a true Walt Disney. He visualized this place when it was wooded. Well, Fauzi would have never made it here. Bill Cochran did it. Well, not single-handed.
Thanks. Yeah, one thing we learned in doing some research for this is most of you folks have seen the runs, and you know there's that one tall wall on the east that has wood support on it and cables coming down from it to keep it from collapsing. And the story we learned, I mean, if somebody knows otherwise, Rick or anybody, the story we learned is that wood that you see up there that was put up on the wall to support it with the cables was actually salvaged in Savannah by Alcoa from a home that it was built the same year that the B.B. Sampson was built. So it's not just any wood. Kind of fascinating. Attention to detail is amazing. I guess one other thing I wanted to ask about here. What was the sense of sales and marketing of primary home versus secondary home and all of that was going on with Hilton Head at the same time?
Well, my earliest recollections were Alcoa had a great team. All the officers were part of this, but there was a notebook. I wish I knew where that notebook was. Got to back it up, I was a Beaufort girl. I mean, I wasn't used to any of it. But there was a notebook where Alcoa had identified this group of people, I guess, David and the others, who was going to live in what house, probably what their profession was, whether they would even have a grand piano. You probably remember that way. They built the 6 model homes there, and they were right. They knew what market to hit. It did help that we had Alcoa's deep pockets that we could advertise for all of that. But they pretty well knew the age of the people that would be coming here, what they would be coming for. That's why golf went first, with the promise of the marina, so we could hit those later. But I believe that was how they did it. They knew, and it shocked me how they were almost dead on who would buy it. Okay.
So thanks for reminding me of that. There was, I think Goodkin Research had done some work on the feasibility study before we closed on the property in Boston. But then to have people have a place to stay, we had the model home program Jim Megan's involved with, so that people won't have to worry about finding the right builder. We'll be the right builder for you, and we have the integrity of Alcoa to back that up. And so that's a whole kind of division that was created. But along with that, you build model homes and have a layout for each of those homes, architectural guidelines to deal with, and then for interior design of those homes, we would specify the people who we thought would live in this home, what Trudy is referring to. And then the interior designers would take that profile and create a, furniture layout, the type of things that would be in that space for that reason. And presumably, people who would come would see themselves and see themselves fitting in. I think it was 50. Part of that is pro forma. Part of that is absorption rates, and I think it was 50% was patio. I forget what percent exactly was in full price lots, and then the points, all of the points in the original master plan were envisioned to be multi-family. And it was only over time that it became more obvious that they had a greater appeal as large lot, single family homes.
The original density was about 1,500 square.
Yeah. That was the.
There were quite a few more patio homes initially than full-size homes or conventional homes. So, this, I think, was based on Bill's experience in Florida, that we're going to be a lot of second home people. They would want patio homes. So we had vastly more patio homes planned initially than what it turned out to be. And actually, the sales department basically convinced Bill that we don't need as many patio homes as we need for conventional homes. So a lot of that whole area out there, a lot of people remember all the things that changed from patio to conventional.
As well as drive.
Yeah. And all those dirt roads, the smart thing they did for sure is you don't let anybody travel down a brand new road with a truckload of asphalt. You wait to the very last minute before you pave that road so you don't tear up the construction vehicle. So that's the reason dirt roads were in here as long as they were, right?
One other thing I learned preparing for this is I went to the Alcoa website today, right? And I was looking to see what they would mention about Dataw. There wasn't much there, but I did run into a whole bunch of old stories about why Alcoa got into the residential plan community business. One of which was they were looking for a market for aluminum homes. But there's a thread there. I have this right that there is something that most people don't know of on Dataw that's built out of aluminum that was done as opposed to a cheaper material that could have been used.
Well, I don't know that I believe the aluminum marketing side of it. I remember back in '83, while living here, I get all these ads for put aluminum siding on your home. That's not a very high volume business out here, but being Alcoa and being, I don't know, imagine the boardrooms of old Fortune 50 companies back in the 80s. They were all dark places and private clubs, and they couldn't possibly allow a steel roof to be put on their clubhouse. And even though the steel as a material in roofing was about half the price of aluminum, they insisted that the clubhouse be aluminum. Now that is pretty obvious right now as you look at the old clubhouse that it's made out of aluminum, because the old finish looks like it's pretty much worn off. Originally, that was actual copper powder flakes immersed in resin that was coating that roof. And The theory at the time was that it would patina and be green. And I thought it was spotted green. I was quite surprised. That's the one thing that really stands out. I was quite surprised to see that lumen is so obvious here. But, yeah, I think we paid, not in today's numbers, it's not going to mean anything, but I think we paid like $650 a square foot when the steel roof would be like $320, something like that square. That's 100 square feet.
So a question for some of our original residents here on the panel. There's a movie that we were playing, but we couldn't really hear it too much. We'll put it up. It's the marketing movie that HOA put together right after the marina was opened in 1990. And in there, they interviewed several residents, and they talked about the fact that this was sort of a paradise, but it also was, the end of the world too, in terms of being so rustic and everything back in the 80s when marketing was going strong and sales were trying to get started. And some of the people in the movie mentioned the fact that they were willing to take a risk on buying a lot and building here because it was backed by Alcoa, as opposed to just, some sort of housing builder or something. Did that factor into your thoughts at all in terms of moving here? I mean, were you reluctant in the 80s, or was this just, you fell in love with the nature of it all?
Well, I think when we first came here, I don't think we weren't reluctant. I mean, it was kind of an adventure for us. We figured it was going to be, when we moved here, it was going to be the last chapter of our life because we came down here to retire. And we just liked what we saw. We liked what we were reading. So we never had any qualms or second thoughts about it, other than I still wanted to stay up in New York with all my friends and family. But I never thought about it. At least I don't think Bob did either.
Alcoa had no influence in California. We couldn't find any advertising, so we wrote for information. And obviously, it paid off because a lot of you look more from the east than from the west.
The answer is no. Bob and I did not think about the fact that Alcoa was developing. We absolutely loved it, and I think, like so many, we fell in love as we drove in to the island on that exquisite entries. There was just no question that we were Bob. I don't know that he was as enthusiastic as I was, but it was an instantaneous decision, and we bought a lot. And I must tell you a little something. Our lot initially was on South Reef. I live in a home in fact, mine is the home that shows the hurricane damage when Hurricane Matthew came through. And the posters over there. And it was 5 months after Bob had passed away, so I had a challenge. But the gentleman who lived across the street in a home on South Reef from the lot that we had purchased, believe it or not, was a pilot during World War II who served on my father, and my dad was a chaplain in the Navy, on his aircraft carrier. It's just incredible, and he invited us into his home, and we talked about the Solomon, pictures of it, looks like a little bathtub. But I think I was probably destined to be here because I'm a Cornellian, and I grew up in Rochester where Kate Smith, Kate Mason. It was indeed, Mason Works is still there, and very, very attractive, but I'm joking. There was no thought given to the fact that Alcoa was in charge.
Let me pause at this point to see if we have any questions from the audience that you guys would like to have answers. Write it down or shout it out and I'll repeat it.
Shout it out. To Rick, do you have apprentices working under you, others who can carry on the work that you do?
No, no one's interested.
Our clients for that, because truly this is an artisan type of work.
Yeah, there's some people down in Georgia, I think, doing a little bit of it, but, no, I've pretty much had this business wrapped up here in South Carolina.
I know.
I've been at 20, this being one site, but I've probably been at, I think, 25 altogether now. And none of them with as many buildings as Dataw. But, no, I haven't seen any interest by anybody yet who wants to take over this job.
Could make a comment about this, if I may. I know some of you might know that we have made an affiliation with the American College for Building Arts in Charleston, and we have given a scholarship to a plaster student who was learning to do old plaster, because that's what they teach. They teach the old way to build things. And we brought the class down here so they could see what tabby was and how tabby was made. And we're trying very hard to get them interested in learning to restore tabby. So, because we know that Rick is the last, and we don't have something to take over, we will be in very big trouble.
Would there be any financial incentive offered to them?
Well, this is these are still students. Right. So, you know, they do internships.
Yeah.
A lot of them know it's a very interesting school. They know what they want to do with their lives. They know what they have planned. And some of them go to Europe and, you know, do internships and so forth. So we're working on it, because we as a historic foundation realize it's going to be a problem. And we appreciate Rick very, very much.
While we're on this subject of tabby, you probably know there's a pretty big chunk of tabby over here between the, what is this, between 9th Street and the bluff over there. There's a big chunk of tabby. They used to be bigger until one of the grandchildren of one of our early owners was out here playing one day, knocked part of it down.
The question you asked earlier was about confidence that prospective buyers had coming to Dataw. Having bought in '85, we crossed that causeway. We saw a clubhouse. There's a swimming pool, tennis courts, one golf course in place. This was a brand new development, and no developer as Alcoa did, and that provided confidence right from the get-go. Concord did a magical job for this standpoint.
From a sales standpoint, that was a very important place for us, the sales office. The fact that it was all here, that you walked in. And yeah. The other thing along that line, trying to get that today, I don't know if he did it or not, but somebody in the organization decided it would be a good idea to invite all the local people in the various clubs around Beaufort to join this club when we opened up for next to no money, as I recall, just start paying some dues, very minimal. And so we really did. And so we had local members who had no property at Dataw. They were just members. We started with 100 or so. And so when people would drive in the gate and come up here to the clubhouse, to the sales office, which was right next door at the beginning, they saw people playing golf, people on the tennis courts, people having lunch. So it was like it was, you know, a going concern already. And even though we only had 25 property owners at that point, it looked like it was the real thing. So that was a big difference.
Yeah, question that open.
Two-part question for Dave. Chicken and the egg, what came first, the design of the houses around the golf course? Or was the golf course designed around the house layout? And how did the Bluffs villas fit into that timeline? That's question one. I got another one.
That's multi-part. They came together at the same time. I mean, you had to have the golf, it's a collaboration. You had to have the golf course architect involved, you needed to have the land planner involved, and the land planner is paying attention to the views from the home sites and the potential impact and feel of actually being on that property, and the golf course architect is mainly making sure that he has a course that he can describe. It's challenging enough, that has enough right lengths and so on. So it's a collaborative effort between the two of them. And I think that addresses the first part. The second part of the Bluffs was we needed a place for people to stay when they arrived, when we opened in spring of '85. So Bluffs were designed and envisioned to be that place in advance. So I think the lottery spoken about earlier was related to the opportunity to invest in Bluffs property. And there were only 42 units, and we thought there would be demand for people to buy them and invest in them, but we leased them back. I believe it was a lease back.
Yeah.
That for a certain period of time, a couple of years, that we would use that as basically our motel, place for people to stay. I don't know how long that stayed in your place, but
You could only buy it if you agreed to lease it back to us 2 years.
And you got to check whether it was rented.
We paid a flat monthly fee for using the building, and we in turn rented it out to prospective buyers to come and spend a few days and see how they liked it. And those were specifically excluded from the rental rules of a minimum, no more than 2 rentals per year. 30-day minimum rental, no more than 2 rentals per year. Plus, we're excluded from that. How we intended to use them.
Second part of your question?
My mom and dad moved here in 1988 on North Reading. And one of the questions that my dad was questioning at that time was, what's next? And there was a conversation going on, I think at that time, around Oak Island being built out with multi-unit or, the next phase of the computer, you're almost dead, but you don't think that. You can move to those units where there would be a hospital or fully going on type of stuff. And asking whatever happened to that idea.
So one of the things, that came later, much later than '88, but we discussed it a long time. We had gone out in houses and so forth, and then there was a change in some of my duties. Woody Oakley had already been given the task to sell Oak Island and move it. So, thank you. But I don't think that's me. But then, anyway, so later on, Bill Cochran, it was dear to his heart. He wanted to see people stay here, and so he really wanted us to move into Oak Island, being some sort of assisted care living. And so one of the things that he gave me is to look into that and look at the feasibility of selling that off to some company that would come in and develop it for that. So we went out and we did some of the land planning for that. We went out to a number of different companies. So I spent, sales. Sorry, I thought I turned it up. But anyway, so we went to like 5 different companies, went out there and looked at marketed. So I had to go back. Of course, the question is, how much is the land going to be? And at the time, let me just make up a number, $6 million. and went out to find it. Well, part of the problem is we had to get the living on the ground level, but that wasn't going to work, so it's caused the elevators and the heights of the bedroom floors because the elevation of the grade of the existing properties. And then, of course, how much the land of the road would take up and how much setbacks from the water, because there's a lot of water there. So anyway, make a long story short, the land planning for that came back in, and people they didn't feel like they could make it work because the cost of the land was too much. And so I went back to Bill, and so before I did, I went back to Bill and I arranged it out into single families. And I needed about 500,000 or so to finish off the roads and extend the sewer and so forth. And at that time, Alcoa had cut everything off. There was no more development money coming in. So we had to do it out of cash flow. And they said, okay, that's just not going to work. So you're not going to get any money to do that, so you can forget that idea. And as far as the assisted care living, then we didn't have the money to do that one. So right after that, the island was sold for, again, don't quote me on this, but instead of 6, it sold for 2. 2 points up, right? 1.2. 1 point. So when I found that out, I went to Bill and said, Bill, if you'd have told me that I could sell this thing for 2, maybe we'd have something on there. But he looked at me and said, well, your heart wasn't in it. That's the story. So anyway, of course, that's changed hands a couple of times. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, hold on, John has some.
I have some questions from the audience. So we've just established, I guess, that the bluffs were the first thing built. Where was the first home built on the island?
I can answer that one. The first 6 houses built were model homes. So the model homes were designed by like 4 different architects. Right? So we had 4 different architects design 6 houses. 2 of them were the conventional homes. You're in now. And then there were 4 houses that were patios across from that. And those houses were, again, we had specific people to furnish them with, and put those houses in. Then we were not going to build houses at all. Alcoa was not going to have a building department. We were going to have a program similar to the Hilton Head Plantation, where you had a stable of builders, so qualified builders. And that just didn't work out. But the first, I want to say, you might correct me, maybe 4 houses were built by outside builders. And I wish I could tell you exactly which one was the first one after the 6 models, but they were 4 of those. One was pull-in builders. There's 2 of those. Another one, a couple of builders that are gone. But anyway, it was a slow, tedious process. I was working with the customers trying to get them hooked up with builders. It just didn't work. So they were building spec houses. They weren't listening to us. They put one of the houses, they put the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. And we knew that was a kiss of death for the sales of it. So anyway, I went to Bill Cochran and asked Bill that could we start taking those model homes and building them ourselves? And could we develop our own building department? And it didn't take him long to say yes. Probably a few days. And we were able, and so we started our own building department, and with the understanding, I promised him that we would only use the designs, and then anybody wanted something custom, that they would move on to those, we would send them out elsewhere. Well, I knew that once I had my foot in the door and we could build, then I could get my foot in the door further and say, well, we can make these modifications. So that's how that, so, yes. Well, Zinzer's house was the first Alcoa building.
Yes.
It was not the first.
And where is that?
Oh, here's the right?
Please.
I'm told it's 535, I'm sure it's.
Correct, yes. Fred Zinzer was the first house that Alcoa contracted. Yes. And probably was the 10,000 on the island. Thereabouts. With the first house, the alcohol of it. Now, the 6 models were built simultaneously.
And where were they? Scattered around?
No, they were all together. There's 2 of them right next to them. Frank is in one of them. Yeah. Yeah. So.
566.
566 Islands.
And then across the fairway, or not the fairway, the space. That is 4 mile homes. So those 4 mile homes, so they have with speed jumps.
That's, then as you turn left there on BB Sands.
Yes, the first
The
floor.
first 4 patio homes there were left, original miles. Just before you turn left, maybe 2 lots back, are the 2 conventional miles. Miranda and the.
Yeah. That was something else that we had. Our first models were G85 and J16. And so I came with Bill and asked him, hey, we're going to need to have something a little more romantic than this to sell these houses. So we went along with the same thing that David was talking about earlier, is we went to historic names from South Carolina, historic names, and we named all the models. And so we still have people are now in the Hepworth or in Gleason, so many. So those are all significant historic names from South Carolina.
Thank you. So another question from the audience is, can the original residents talk about what social life was like in such a small community? And how did you communicate? Because Bill said, we didn't have computers, so.
Well, we were far from bored. We were always busy meeting people because there were so few of us. We would get together every afternoon at someone's house usually for a break and then go home. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Thank you. We had the pool, we had golf, we had tennis. We rode bikes, we walked. You'd go out for a walk and you'd be gone for a long time because everybody wanted to talk to you. We had island friends, and Valentine started out early on. There were smaller groups, there was usually 10 couples. There were cocktail hours and hors d'oeuvres, and they usually ran from 5 to 7, right? Then we all went home. We didn't have these. Huh? Oh, well, thank you for reminding me of that. Everybody used to wave on Valentine. You'd be in your car, your golf cart, your bike, and it was always. And I don't always, I see it, I still see a few students like that, not that many. And we had, there were clubs at the time. There were Bible study groups, and he probably is still in the same one. There were rituals. We had the cannery. The cannery was started early on by Lola Smithson. And many of the residents built little shells under there. Jim May would be good lumber at the end of the day that they could use to build the shells. So that's how the cannery came about to be. And it still functions pretty much as it did years ago. Thank you, Laura. What else would we do? It's almost master's time. And I can remember when we first got here, I think it was, what was it, Evans? He would hire a bus, rent a bus out, and you could make a reservation, go on the bus. You could drive up to Augusta, stop at the gate, and buy a ticket at the gate. Can you believe that? That's how it was.
Yes.
We used to go on bus rides up to, what was that restaurant, Yemisi, the restaurant? There's a lot of those trips. The Buford Orchestra was in the infancy of that time, so we get the concerts to go there. It was a small orchestra, they maybe had 25 people in it. I don't remember who the conductor was. The concerts were held at St. Helena's Church. Now this orchestra is magnificent, it's grown, and if you have never been to a concert, you really should take advantage of it. It's a very, very good. What else did we do today? Close trouble. Oh, we get it. Friday afternoon, and around 5 o'clock and we'll go around and bring a snack and a share to be shared. So we sit around the pool, have a swim, a dip, a couple of drinks, and all go home to dinner. None of us were bored. We all used to laugh because we come down to Dataw Drive and we say, oh, it's Dataw time, it's 9 o'clock, everybody's in bed. Still. There's nobody remember Brian Arnold. Every year they had a New Year's Eve party. They usually began around 6 o'clock. And Herbert Burley, they remind us, it was every year it was the same. It was salad, lasagna, bread, and hard drinks and sugar. Well, Herb wanted to go to bed early, and he put he set all of his clocks an hour ahead of time. So we all got home by 11 o'clock. Why was Thornton doing it? We knew everybody on that. I look out now. This was,
Did you meet at the Horseshoe Bar?
oh, okay. You know, when we came here, the first thing, the only building that was really here was the clubhouse that is over there. And when you walked in, the real estate was on the right, and all of it was from people were down there. And then in the lower, pub now, that's where they had a big diorama of Dataw. It showed everything, where all the houses were going to be, where all the planned amenities went through. And that was there. And then we had the final, there was a dining room to the right, to the left rather. And that's where, I don't even know if it was open for lunch, I don't remember that. But on that weekend, it was open for fine dining, and we all, the men wore their sports jackets and ties, and the ladies looked quite lovely. There was a maitre d', the wine store. We had Lake Fortune at the time. There was a really funny thing, like, oh, there was a piano player.
Yes.
And I think that piano is the one that we still have out in the lobby, but not too sure.
It is.
It is? Okay. So we had a lot to do, and we were far from bored.
Wednesday night was happy hour up in the tabby room.
Well, thank you for bringing the tabby room up. Well, the tabby room was a wonderful, wonderful room. A lot of you don't know what it's all about. These that were here had lots of memories. It was a huge circular bar. I don't know how many people sat on it, could sit at it. And we would gather there, basically, I remember Friday nights up there.
Wednesday.
And, okay,
Wednesday.
I went on Friday. Now, it was small enough that the lady walked in the door, Hutch knew what we wanted to drink. And whether it was, perfect Manhattan or whatever it was, he had it ready for you when you got to the bar. Another thing that's changed in Dataw is our drinking habits. I don't know if it's any less, but any more, but it's not, maybe it's not any less. Years ago, people were still drinking cocktails, hard liquors.
Absolutely.
I mean, hardly anybody drinks wine, hardly anybody was drinking beer. But now it seems like it's wine and beer mostly that people are drinking. Anyway, that bar, the Hackett Room bar was just a wonderful place to be. And at one time we had.
Happy cat.
I'm getting there. There was a wonderful, this is my jazz band. And they would be up there on Friday nights. Musicians, they were attracted socially. There were about 6 people in the band, and I think they had them. Jean Lamb was the leader of the group. She was the pianist, and she worked with, I think, the people like maybe Frank Sinatra back up to him sometime, the other of that era. The other people that were in the band were Wendy Lankenhorn, Bob Murphy, Bill Timms.
And like he.
Bill Trim's.
No, he didn't do anything. You really have a good time when you're both, you're playing, we all sing along, and this is one of the. And then when the changes started to be made, they were gonna renovate the house and do whatever, and that beautiful bar was sold to Fred Island. They cut it in half. And I don't even think the cars go here anymore. We have a lot of wonderful memories that we didn't hear about. And we were far from board. Oh, you come pretty nice. Besides that, there was a lovely widowed redhead lady, and she was the hostess. She lived on South Reeve. I know the house that she came from. She was a beautiful resident and everything. But the other thing I wanted to say at the time, Bill Cochran was the general manager. And at the same time, everything that was going on here at Dataw, he constantly, in his way, encouraged people to be a part of the community. And I always thought that was such a nice thing, because sometimes when you go into town, you wouldn't sign Dataw, you would sign St. Helen. Oh, and it just didn't do it. But one of the other wonderful things that started off the island, which they didn't have at the time, but which soon became a part of it, was croquet. And croquet was one of my favorite things.
Hold the microphone on.
And when Dataw also sent out videos in promotion, we had already had our lot that we received as promotion, and it had croquet on it. Well, I'd been here and there was no croquet. That took a little while, but we finally got the croquet.
I don't mean to cut it off, but we're kind of running over our time now. Is there any other burning questions, Diane, you want to?
Well, the next part of that question was also, Dataw is a very giving community with neighbors helping neighbors. What started this mindset? And I think that Barbara and Debbie have kind of answered that question.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to wrap this up. We'll take another break and we're going to come back for the 2020 10s with our first general manager, Coach Dataw, and our current general manager and a few others.